In every city, behind every quiet street, and every peaceful neighborhood in the United States, there exists an undercurrent of secrets people prefer not to think about. Most Americans believe that evil is distant, something that happens in other towns, to other families, in stories told on the news, but never in their own lives. Yet history has repeatedly revealed a disturbing truth. Sometimes the most dangerous predators don't hide in forests or abandoned buildings. Sometimes they blend perfectly into society. They sit next to us at work, they shop where we shop, and they wave politely to the neighbors. What makes this story so terrifying is not just the brutality of the crimes, but how easily the killer went unnoticed. Tonight, you and I will step deep into the psychological abyss surrounding the worst serial killer in the history of the United States. A man whose crimes spanned years, whose victims came from different backgrounds, and whose ability to manipulate the world around him made investigators question everything they thought they knew about criminal behavior. This documentary isn't simply about recounting what he did. It is about understanding how someone without empathy, without remorse, and without any trace of humanity could live inside the same society that believed itself safe. As we explore his early life, his methods, his patterns, and the long trail of destruction he left behind, remember one thing: evil does not always wear a frightening face. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it looks familiar. And that is what makes this case one of the most disturbing in American history. Every monster has an origin, and the beginnings of this particular predator can be traced back to an ordinary-looking childhood that, on the surface, seemed no different from thousands of others across America. Teachers described him as quiet, obedient, and almost invisible in the classroom. Adults often praised him for being well-mannered and respectful. But children don't always know how to describe the strange feeling of sensing something off about someone. And even at a young age, there was something unsettling behind his empty stare. He learned early that emotions could be imitated. If he laughed when others laughed, no one questioned the authenticity of the sound. If he acted sad when sadness was expected, adults praised him for being sensitive. But these were performances, carefully calculated actions designed to blend into the world around him. Behind closed doors, he showed early signs of psychological fracture, a disturbing fascination with death, unusual cruelty to small animals, and a complete lack of emotional reaction to situations that would affect any normal child. In his isolated moments, he developed a habit of observing people from a distance, their routines, their expressions, their vulnerabilities. These became his silent study material. He didn't socialize because he didn't feel connected to others. He studied them like a scientist studying insects. By adolescence, he had mastered the ability to hide every dark impulse behind a mask of normality. He wasn't shaped by rage. He wasn't driven by trauma. He simply lacked the mechanisms that define humanity. What everyone thought was a shy boy was actually a predator learning patience. As he grew older, he began exploring the world outside his home with a new kind of purpose, not as a student, not as a young man seeking adventure, but as a hunter, mapping potential environments for future crimes. He visited neighborhoods late at night, walking alone for hours while memorizing every alley. every poorly lit street, every shortcut, and every blind spot in the landscape. These areas weren't chosen randomly. They were systematically tested, evaluated, and categorized inside his mind. What made him terrifying wasn't just his intelligence, but his patience. Many killers act impulsively. He didn't. He waited until every detail of his hunting ground was perfectly understood. He learned when people arrived home, when they went to sleep, and who walked alone after dark. To him, the world was divided into two groups, predators and prey, and he knew exactly which one he intended to be. His first victim appeared to be a coincidence to investigators, but in reality, she fit a profile he had been constructing mentally for years. Vulnerable, predictable, and alone. He followed her for days before his attack, studying her from afar, memorizing her schedule with the precision of someone preparing for a military operation. The attack itself was silent, fast, and shockingly controlled. He didn't panic, he didn't hesitate. And when it was over, he walked away with the calmness of someone who had rehearsed the moment countless times in his mind. The crime scene left behind almost nothing. The absence of evidence wasn't luck, it was intentional.
After the first victim, most killers experience panic. They shake, they sweat, they fear the possibility of being caught. But he wasn't like most killers. There was no tremor in his hands, no sleepless nights, no overwhelming guilt. Instead, he felt something different, a strange sense of clarity. The world seemed quieter, easier to navigate, as if taking a life had sharpened his senses. And so, in the months that followed, he vanished back into the background like a ghost. Police worked frantically, trying to understand the brutality of the attack. Detectives argued theories, some believing it was a robbery gone wrong, others suggesting a crime of passion. But none of them imagined this was the work of someone who viewed murder not as an accident, but as a calculated beginning. He followed the investigation closely, almost as if he were evaluating their competence. He watched press conferences with a blank expression, occasionally tilting his head in curiosity when detectives made incorrect assumptions. Every mistake they made became another lesson for him. The silence was not a break, not a moment of hesitation. It was strategy. He needed to understand exactly how the system worked, how long it took for certain evidence to be processed, how the media portrayed the crime, how frightened the community became. This period of stillness allowed him to refine his methods, to determine what left traces and what didn't, to assess the weaknesses in law enforcement. He was not hiding, he was studying. Deep inside, the act of killing had awakened something primal within him. But it wasn't rage or bloodlust, it was control. The feeling of absolute power, the realization that he could take a life and return to normality without consequence. This quiet period wasn't the end of something. It was preparation for something far worse. When he killed again, it was immediately clear his methods had evolved. The second attack was not a repeat of the first. It was far more organized. Every detail had been thought through, every movement practiced mentally, long before the actual event. He no longer needed days of observation beforehand. He had learned how to recognize opportunity in real time. His confidence was growing, and with that confidence came refinement. The investigators, still unsure whether they were dealing with a single offender, noted eerie similarities between the scenes. The victims were different, from different backgrounds, different lifestyles, yet the violence carried a signature that could only belong to one person. Still, without physical evidence, detectives could not prove a pattern. The crime scenes were disturbingly clean. There were no fingerprints, no hair fibers, no witnesses, no footprints. It was as if the killer floated through the environment without touching anything. This escalation wasn't driven by desperation or emotional outburst. This was the progression of someone perfecting a craft. He felt untouchable. After each attack, he returned to his daily life with chilling normality. He went to work, made small talk with colleagues, visited local stores. Outwardly, nothing about him seemed unusual. Inside, however, he replayed every moment of the killing, analyzing it like a scientist refining an experiment. And while investigators struggled to catch up, he felt a growing sense of superiority. Killing wasn't about rage. It was about mastery. It was about proving to himself that he could take life after life without leaving the slightest trace behind.
What made him truly terrifying was not only his crimes, but how effortlessly he blended into society. He maintained a stable job, arriving every morning with a neutral smile and leaving every afternoon without drawing a single suspicious glance. His co-workers saw him as quiet but reliable. Some described him as polite, helpful, or a bit distant but harmless. No one imagined that the man organizing paperwork or making small talk in the break room had taken multiple lives. In his apartment, nothing appeared unusual. The living room was clean, organized, and minimalistic. He didn't collect strange items, didn't display odd decorations, didn't keep anything that suggested the darkness within him. He lived with an extreme awareness that any misstep could expose him. So he constructed a life that was neither remarkable nor forgettable. He was exactly what he wanted the world to see: average. At community gatherings, he volunteered just enough to appear friendly, but not enough to draw attention. He made sure neighbors saw him carrying groceries, walking to work, living a normal routine. If anyone greeted him, he returned the gesture with a soft but controlled smile. Everything he did was designed to avoid suspicion. What investigators would later describe as the perfect camouflage wasn't luck, it was intentional. He understood people better than they understood him. He knew that society rarely questions the quiet ones. He hid in plain sight, protected by the very social structures meant to expose dangerous behavior. And the most disturbing part? No one ever suspected a thing.
Although he appeared calm and collected on the outside, internally, something darker was beginning to unravel. His mind, already cold and detached, started shifting into a more chaotic and obsessive state. He kept a mental catalog of every victim, every detail, every emotion he pretended to feel. This internal world became more vivid than his actual life. Experts would later describe him as displaying extreme antisocial personality disorder, combined with a deep narcissistic delusion. He believed he was superior to everyone around him. Co-workers, neighbors, police, even his victims, none were real to him. They were pieces on a board, movable, disposable, and existing only to serve his need for dominance. His thoughts became ritualistic, Before each attack, he didn't feel fear, he felt preparation. After each attack, he didn't feel guilt, he felt achievement. He treated murder like a project, something to be evaluated and perfected. The more he killed, the less connected to humanity he became. He didn't just view people as objects, he viewed them as opportunities to reinforce his sense of control. He was no longer hiding a dark side. The darkness was now the only part of him that felt real. This shift marked the beginning of a psychological freefall, one that would push him into more reckless and dangerous patterns, even though he believed he was still in complete control.
As the killings continued, something began to change. Detectives started noticing connections, subtle, fragile threads tying the crimes together. A similar type of injury, a nearly identical time frame, locations that shared common traits. While none of these clues were strong enough alone, together they began forming a disturbing picture. Meanwhile, the killer refined his process even further. He targeted victims with weaker social connections, individuals who might not be immediately missed. This made investigations slower, giving him even more time to plan his next move. His stalking methods evolved as well. He learned how to blend into crowds, how to follow someone without being seen, how to choose environments where escape routes were easy and witnesses unlikely. Yet his growing ego also made him slightly bolder. He began approaching victims in riskier areas, taking steps that might have exposed him if circumstances had changed. But in his mind, he was invincible. Years without being caught had warped his perception of reality. He believed he was smarter than every detective, every agent, every profiler. And for a while, it seemed like he might be right. Still, investigators were closing in, slowly, quietly. The pattern, once invisible, was becoming undeniable. And the killer, blinded by arrogance, didn't see that his margin for error was shrinking.
Every criminal, no matter how intelligent, eventually makes a mistake. It may be small, subtle, barely noticeable, but sometimes that is all investigators need. For him, the mistake came on a night when he felt too confident, too sure of his own abilities. He approached a victim who fought back harder than expected. In the chaos, something slipped. A footprint in the mud, a partial tire impression, a witness who noticed something just slightly out of place. To most observers, these would seem like meaningless details, but to trained investigators desperate for a break, they were gold. This was the first physical evidence linked to the killer in years of investigation. Detectives pounced on the lead, tracing it back to a small geographic area, then to a specific timeline, then to a short list of potential suspects. The killer didn't realize immediately what he had done, but investigators began connecting dots that had previously been impossible to see. His perfect pattern now had a crack, small, but enough for the truth to start leaking through. As the cases multiplied, the FBI launched one of the largest behavioral investigations in the region. They brought in profiling experts, forensic analysts, and veteran agents who had spent their careers studying serial offenders. The profile they created shocked even seasoned professionals. This killer wasn't impulsive or chaotic. He wasn't driven by emotion. He was organized, intelligent, methodical, and socially functional. To trap him, the FBI released selective information to the media. They wanted to pressure him psychologically, to make him react. They believed he was closely following news coverage, and they were right. Every briefing, every article, every interview was designed not for the public, but for him. To corner him emotionally, to trigger a mistake, to break the illusion of control he believed he had. For the first time, he felt a shift inside himself. Not fear, but irritation, annoyance. The idea that someone might be challenging his perceived superiority enraged him. And that emotional crack was exactly what investigators needed.
His final victim was the turning point. She was strong, resilient, and refused to give up, even in the most terrifying circumstances. Her resistance created chaos he had never experienced during an attack. In that chaos, he lost control, something he was mentally unprepared for. And with that loss of control came mistakes. She left behind crucial evidence, fibers, fingerprints, and signs of a violent struggle that investigators could trace. For the first time, they had a direct connection to the killer, a link that confirmed the patterns, the behaviors, and the profile. The case transformed from a mystery into a manhunt. Police moved quickly, determined not to lose their chance. Every resource was mobilized. Every agent was involved. The hunt for the most dangerous killer in the United States had reached its final stage. When police and federal agents finally arrived at his door, the nation held its breath. After years of fear, rumors, and unanswered questions, the end had come. And yet, when he opened the door, he did not run. He did not panic. He simply stared at the officers with an unreadable expression. Calm, almost bored, as if the moment held no significance. Inside his home, investigators uncovered evidence that horrified even the most experienced detectives. Journals detailing his crimes with meticulous precision. Personal belongings from victims hidden inside drawers and boxes. Maps, notes, and patterns that matched years of unsolved murders. The world watched in disbelief as the truth surfaced. The worst serial killer in U.S. history had lived quietly among ordinary people, unnoticed and unsuspected for years. The legacy of his crimes extends far beyond the number of victims. It shattered illusions. It forced law enforcement to evolve. It changed the way communities viewed safety, trust, and the appearance of normalcy. Evil, people learned, does not always present itself with obvious warning signs. Sometimes it hides behind a neighbor's smile, a coworker's quiet demeanor, or a stranger's polite nod. To this day, investigators still study this case to understand how someone so calculating, so controlled, so invisible could operate for so long. And every year, new agents and profilers re-examine the files, searching for insights that might prevent another predator like him from emerging. If you want more deep, chilling investigations like this one, make sure to subscribe to Hidden Crimes YT. We release new true crime documentaries every single week, exploring the darkest corners of real cases that shocked America. Stay safe and always stay aware of the shadows around you.